The NFL's had some rather strange playoff situations, and you just look at it and go, why did you do that? So from 1920 to 1932, there were no playoffs. It was just whoever had the best record was a champion. Except ties didn't count towards the standings, and you could just add games, whatever you wanted. Then from 33 to 67, easy peasy. Eastern Division versus Western Division championship. Except that there was a tie at the top of the division, and then you had a one-game playoff, kind of similar to what the AL and the NL did. Then from the 67 to 69 playoffs, you had the four C's: Coastal, Century, as opposed to Central, and Capital Visions. They were divided into four divisions of four. There was an Eastern Conference, a Western Conference, but there were no more tiebreakers. Now they actually had a tie-breaking system if you had the first and second team in the division were of the same record. Though in the 3 years that happened, they didn't do anything with it. Then becomes the confusion of 1970 until the expanded playoffs from four teams in each now conference, 18 playoff. So at the beginning of the playoff system, they did much like baseball did when they expanded with the divisional rounds. So you would have a year in which the East would play the Central and then the West would play the wild card team. Except if the West was and the wild card team were from the same division, because they didn't want to have commonality of their opponents in the first round of the playoffs. The conventional wisdom was that if a team beat them twice in the regular season, they would win a third time. So they didn't want a blowout. And as odd as it may sound, for the longest time, there were a lot of diehard AFL fans that didn't watch a lot of NFC football and NFL fans that didn't watch a lot of AFC football. So they didn't want the first interaction to be a blowout. Also, if you were the divisional opponent who hosted the wildcard team, you didn't host the championship in your conference. So when the 17-0 Miami Dolphins, which sometimes people will say is should not be the greatest team of all time because they didn't play very good playoff teams and the AFC East was just weak. They did have to go on the road to win the AFC Championship and then go on the road to win the Super Bowl. Then when the playoffs got expanded to 5, they kept that same logic when it came to the best divisional champion not playing a wildcard team in their own record, in their own division. They still didn't want that familiarity, but at least they got rid of the guarantee that the East had to play the Central and then the West had the wild card or whatever they wanted to do that year, which made for some interesting waiting that the first team had to do. So, the games were on a Sunday, and you didn't know who your divisional opponents were going to be until Sunday night sometimes. So let's flash to, if you got a weird upset, right? 1987, the strike year. New Orleans was 12-3, and they lost to, I think it was Minnesota. It was like 9-6. And so San Francisco had been preparing the whole week, thinking that New Orleans was going to win. They were preparing against Washington. And then Minnesota wins, and Minnesota beats them. And then Washington, at the time, became the only third seed ever to host the NFC Championship game. And then, of course, they beat Denver in the Super Bowl. Now, they stopped that weird not playing your divisional round game against a wildcard team. They stopped that when they expanded the playoffs to 6 per conference. From that point on, they finally locked it up, and they said, okay, best divisional champion plays lowest seeded team. Second best divisional champion plays second lowest seeded team. Third divisional champion would then play worst wild card team in the wild card round. So no longer do they get a bye, and then the best wild card teams would play each other. So you had many chances where you might even have up to 3 teams from the same division being in the divisional round. And now that they've expanded to 7 per, then again the second best divisional champion now plays in the first round against the worst wild card team. Ultimately, I think I would hope one day that the NFL looks at the wild card and goes, "Hey, a team that goes 14-3 was a better record than the third and the fourth divisional champion. In fact, going to be, and there have been years in which the divisional champion has a losing record. It would be nice for that wild card team to not have to go on the road against like the 8 and 9 winner of the NFC South. But that's for another time. Like and subscribe, hate and comment. And so yeah, the NFL has had some kind of strange ways in which they have seeded their playoffs.